Welcome everyone to my new series, Cities XL, and today we are going to be playing a interesting game. This is Cities XL. If you haven't heard of it, it was made back in 2012, right after SimCity came out. That was a total failure, and a lot of people went and bought this game because of that. Small little development company made this, and I believe they went bankrupt, unfortunately, after making a few variations of this game. Or they're close to being bankrupt right now. But anyways, this game, for the time, was actually pretty decent. And I went into it not expecting to have too many issues, but man, did I have issues. Oh my gosh. The game is very triggering to play. If you guys have played City Skylines, do not even try to play this game at this point because it's almost unplayable. That's how bad it is. As you can see, the UI is pretty outdated, but one of the first things I realized is you can't adjust the controls. You can't change the keyboard. So it has default keys to move around with the arrow keys, which is absolutely terrible. You can't just use your mouse to move around or anything like that. So that was the first challenge, and I spent a lot of time trying to get used to it again, but man, that is rough. Second thing is the way you build roads in this game. Oh man, you will see. I mean, at the time, it was pretty good because, again, the only thing we had was SimCity. The idea that you could get a game and have curved roads and individual zoning and really have ultimate customization with your city had not existed at the time. So this was a really revolutionary game at the time. And City Skylines took a lot of the good that was from this game and made obviously the best city builder ever made to date. But the reason I'm playing this game is because I wanted a little bit of throwback, and plus City Skylines has not been launching properly for me, so I need to fix that. But in the meantime, I'm going to be playing this just for fun. We'll see. We'll build a little city here on this island. But again, as you can see, the way you build is kind of rough, to say the least. But we're going to go ahead and start out. The city is going to be called Mission Vallejo, which is based off a California city master plan community, which obviously it's not going to be like that, considering this is on a volcano island. This map has 90% difficulty, and I can see why, because the terrain's rough, and obviously you have a volcano. So that's going to be an issue, but I decided I wanted a little bit of a challenge, so I went for it. So the first thing we got to build is a harbor, because we're on an island. People obviously can't get to us unless we have a harbor. So we'll get that plopped down, and I thought that was a pretty decent spot. And I'm going to try and go for a basic grid around the harbor area, and eventually obviously we'll develop it as downtown. In the meantime, though, we'll start developing some housing, and I kind of want this expressway. They call it an expressway. It's really an artillery road, but the expressway to kind of wrap around this area and kind of bypass it almost, but have good connectivity to it. So we're going to go ahead and try and line this up. But again, if you're watching, man, it was frustrating to get used to the controls for this game, to say the least. It was very difficult. Now, one of the amazing features that this game has that would be very useful in City Skylines is the ability to zone a grid automatically. So as you can see, I can drag out and I can just zone massively tons of houses, and it will build the grid for me. Which, you know, some people would say, oh, well, that takes away from the customizability of the grid, you know, because you don't want just monotonous grids everywhere. But it certainly makes it easier. as long as you're not too crazy with it, your cities will still look pretty unique without having too much problems. Now, of course, I did not think about terraforming. uh, I'm used to City Skylines kind of doing it for you, so I had to terraform this, and the terraforming tool, again, game was made in 2012, great at the time, not great in the current day. As you can see, it's very difficult to terraform, so I was just trying to make it as flat as possible, and I succeeded somewhat. So I can go ahead and drag this out, and we end up making a grid that big. But I'm going to modify it a little bit so we don't have unrealistic things like that. And we'll kind of fix things up. But this is going to be our first housing development. Very simple little housing development. We'll be able to move in probably about 500 residents with this little development, which is a good starting point. And, as you can see, game's pretty decent with the details, but it's also got its drawbacks. So we'll go ahead and place that there. Now, obviously, we're going to have to place a town hall, so I'm thinking somewhere by the harbor, kind of as the center of town, because obviously people coming into the city, they're going to want to go to the courthouse, and they're going to want to shop and all that stuff, and the only way to get in is the harbor, so it makes sense to have the central part of the town there. And I was considering bringing this expressway out this way, but I'm thinking I'm going to have to pass on that because my plans just weren't working for it. So I end up removing some of this, but you'll see how it turns out. We'll build a nice little downtown, and eventually, obviously, we'll make a pretty big downtown with a commercial hub and everything. It's going to be difficult to build around the volcano, obviously, but we'll manage, and that's a pretty realistic grade there. And sometimes houses are on different levels, so it's not too crazy to do it sometimes. Mainly, it's when the roads are, insane. That's when I'll obviously change things. But yeah, I placed City Hall there, which I think is a pretty decent spot, and we can always move it. But I decided to remove the expressway for now, and we'll bring it back around eventually. It just didn't fit into the plans right now. It's kind of expensive to build an expressway too, and as you can see, we're running out of money as well, so I needed to save some money. So I went ahead and deleted a few things, but we already have 47 people in, and that's growing. So we're getting our first few residents in, so we should be able to generate some tax revenue. And I'm going to go ahead and build a few commercial spots here. I think we'll just individually zone a few commercial buildings, and then we're also going to need to get some utilities in as well. Power obviously is important, so we'll go ahead and probably bring this around here. I don't love having it right by the ocean, but we'll do that. I don't know what that is. I don't know why why the game is doing that, but that's very weird. So we'll put the power there for now. And I was gonna put the dump here, but I was like, yeah, no, we can't do that. It's a terrible idea. But I put a little utility center there, which is actually a pretty little cool building. Kind of has some water, solar, and trash processing, which is really useful. It's a combination building that the game has, which was one of the coolest buildings I think it has, because you could start your city without having to plan out an industrial area right away. Which in City Skylines you kind of have to think about right away. Otherwise you're going to end up polluting the river. Where in this game, pollution isn't really much of a problem. Obviously you can't put industry right next to houses, but you can get away with a lot more. So I hope you guys will enjoy this series, and definitely let me know if you have any suggestions. I'm still getting used to the controls, so bear with me on that. But thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.